Hey guys, today I wanted to take a look at the new updated JHK forecast for the 2020 presidential election between former Vice President Joe Biden and Donald Trump. So it's been a while since we've taken a look at this forecast, but I think that JHK is one of the fairest forecasts out there. They do give both parties basically an equal chance. They're not biased in too many ways, in my opinion, much less biased than some other forecasts like Our Progress or the 538 forecast. But looking at this forecast here, the JHK forecast, they currently give Joe Biden a 79.5% chance of winning the presidency and Donald Trump a 20.5% chance of winning his re-election in 2020. And then basically these are the odds of Trump winning with an upset. And down here, this is the JHK electoral map. This is the electoral map that they predict. And basically they put each state into the categories based on the percentage that they think each candidate has a chance of winning. So states like Oregon, 98.9% for Joe Biden, not over 99.9% in California. Basically, that's just the percentage chances each candidate has of winning each state. So these swing states, I think that they do give some pretty interesting classifications. Michigan, 86% chance of going to Biden. Wisconsin, 81% chance. Pennsylvania, 85% chance. These are the only three states that Biden needs to win besides the 2016 Clinton states. So Biden has an over 80% chance of winning in the three states that he really needs to win this election. These are all tipping point states. Basically, these are the states that are going to tip the election in favor of Biden or Trump and win either candidate the election. These three tipping point states, the three most important ones in my opinion, these three states are all over 80% chance of Biden set to win right now. And then Virginia, 92%, Minnesota, 86.1% chance of Biden winning the state of Minnesota. This is a little bit lower from before just because Biden's numbers in Minnesota have not been as strong as they were just a couple of weeks ago. Nevada, 82%. Surprising to see that Joe Biden has a smaller chance of winning the state of Nevada, a state that Clinton won in 2016, than a state like Wisconsin, 81%. I mean, not Wisconsin, not 81%, but a state like Michigan, 86%. A state that Trump won in 2016 is now more likely to go to Joe Biden than a state that went to Hillary Clinton in 2016. And then the state of Arizona, 62.4% currently of going to Joe Biden, 37% of going to Trump. I think this is pretty major just because this state has not gone to a Democrat since 1996 when Bill Clinton carried this state, winning over 370 electoral votes. 62% that Arizona goes to Biden. I think this is a good classification. Trump's numbers here have really fallen since his comments on the military, and just basically the McCain family coming out and supporting Joe Biden really had an impact. They are very influential here in the state of Arizona, and Trump has been attacking John McCain and was attacking John McCain for quite a while, even when he was alive. So I think that's definitely going to hurt Donald Trump quite a bit here in the state of Arizona. The state of Florida, Biden currently has a 66.6% chance of winning this state. I think this is pretty big. State of Florida, very important. I think that if Biden loses one of these other states, Florida could definitely make up. Florida could make up for over two of these states. So if Biden really loses some states by a pretty shocking margin, if he wins Florida, I think he's still almost definitely going to win in the election. But Florida, 66.6% chance of going to Joe Biden and 33.4% chance of going to President Trump. I think this is a very bad sign for the Trump campaign just because Florida is typically such a close state, and it's a state that Trump needs to win re-election. I don't think Trump can win, the state of Florida without I don't think he can win re-election without the state of Florida. If we look back at historical trends, no Republican has been able to win the election without the state of Florida in decades. And then the state of North Carolina, 58% chance of going to Joe Biden. So Joe Biden's doing better in Florida than North Carolina, which I think is fair. But North Carolina has been polling pretty well for Joe Biden, right? Not too well, but I say well because Joe Biden has never not been in the lead in the polling averages in North Carolina. He has been leading over Trump for the entire election campaign so far, which is why I do think that he's still going to carry this state. There's never been a moment where Trump's polling average in North Carolina was higher than Biden's. So 58% chance of going to Joe Biden, 42% for Trump. Ohio, 35% Biden, 64% Trump. I think that's pretty fair right now. Ohio is polling better and better for Trump, but very slightly. Iowa, same thing, 39% Biden, 60.1% Trump. Georgia, 37.9% Biden, 62% Trump. And then the state of Texas only gives Joe Biden a 30% chance of carrying this state, and President Trump a 70% chance. Now, what I think is the good thing for Biden on this map is just all of the pathways that he has to victory. If he loses a state like Wisconsin or even Pennsylvania as well, he can win Florida and make up for those electoral votes and still win the election. If he doesn't win Arizona or Wisconsin, he can win Florida. If he doesn't win North Carolina, Arizona, Wisconsin, or Pennsylvania even, he can just win Florida. So there's just a lot of different scenarios in which Biden can win the election if he somehow loses in an upset in some of these states to President Trump. If he loses, even if he loses Michigan and Wisconsin, if he wins any of these other states, he is still likely to win the election. But I think that if he loses Michigan, he's going to lose the election, in my opinion. But there's just a lot of leeway for Biden to underperform in many states. He can lose North Carolina, he can lose Arizona, he can lose Florida and still win the election. So it's just a lot of different pathways for Biden right now. And it's definitely not looking too good for Trump, especially with the new tapes that came out just a couple of days ago showing him knowing about the death rate of COVID-19 and trying to play it down and admitting to playing it down. So I think that's definitely going to be damaging to his campaign. Definitely not a good sign, and definitely I think that's going to drop his poll numbers, in my opinion. And then taking a look down here, this is their national overview. Basically, they think that Joe Biden is going to win on average 330.3 electoral votes. So basically, after all of their simulations that they have performed, Joe Biden has an average of 330.3 electoral votes to President Donald Trump with an average of 207.7, and the Libertarian and Green Party candidates, of course, zero electoral votes. And then for the popular vote margins, Joe Biden is currently expected to win a total of 52.1% of the national popular vote, and Donald Trump 45%, Jorgensen 1.9%, and then Hawkins 1%. And then I think this is pretty fair for Trump because Trump really does have a floor, unlike some other Republican candidates like George H.W. Bush or even Jimmy Carter in 1980. What's interesting about Donald Trump is that no matter how badly he does, there is still a very strong minority of the country that supports him no matter what. His approval rating really has not dropped too far below 40% ever. And no matter what he does, there always seems to be just around 40 to 42% of the United States just supporting him no matter what he does. And that is a positive for the Trump campaign. But 45%, I think is pretty fair. You have his very solid base, the 42% that are going to vote for him no matter what, and then some other Republican voters that may not like Biden or any of these alternatives. So 45%, I think that's pretty fair for Trump. Joe Biden, I think 52% is a little bit high. His averages have barely been hitting 50% lately. I think that around a 51 would be his best case right now, but I think a 50% average is more fair for Biden. But 52% definitely could happen on election night. Really depends on what happens in the next couple of days, because next couple of months and weeks, just a lot can happen before election night. And then this is their graphs for the changing race for the White House. And then looking at this graph, as you can see, when the election cycle started off here in early March, basically that's when Biden won Super Tuesday. He won big there, and then he won the second large night for the Democratic primary, and then Bernie Sanders dropped out after the last Democratic debate. And then Joe Biden's lead was pretty consistent. He led by around 20% on average, and then it was really in May his lead increased a little bit, and then it was really June, the beginnings of the month of June, with the Black Lives Matter protests all around the country, being covered all the time. And it was really those protests and Trump's response to them that caused Biden to have this giant, uptick in his chances of a victory. They have stayed pretty consistent, has dipped a little bit in recent days after the Republican National Convention, but has gone up a little bit slightly. But still, he sits at 79.5% chance of winning right now to President Trump with 20.5%. And then looking at the changes in the popular vote, as you can see, we can basically see a similar trend here, except with the other third-party candidates actually having some percentages down there. As you can see, Biden and Trump were pretty close, not too close, but still relatively close in the beginning. And then, as you can see here, in the beginnings of the month of June, Biden's numbers went up, stayed pretty consistent for the next couple of months, dipped down a little bit in the beginnings of the month of September. They have come up a little bit, but not too much. So currently, Joe Biden 52.1% of the popular vote expected to Donald Trump with 45%. As you can see, the margin of error there is getting a little bit closer. But according to this graph right here, Donald Trump should have no chance of winning the popular vote just because the margin of error does not overlap, with these two graphs. And then the electoral vote average, as you can see, we already went over this, but Joe Biden averaged 330 electoral votes. And same thing, pretty close in the beginning. In the beginning, Trump was still expected to win based off of the betting odds. Trump was expected to win. He was never ahead in the polls, but more people did think that he was going to win the election than Joe Biden. And that was just because the election was pretty close, but many people did expect, and even I expected, that Donald Trump would win in a little bit of an upset, just like 2016 wouldn't be as much of an upset, but still he would be down in many states, but still come up and win those states. That's when Wisconsin, Florida, Pennsylvania, Michigan, those states were within 2 to 3 points of each other, and so that's why a lot of people really did not have too much confidence in Biden. But after Trump's numbers fell in early June and then basically stayed pretty consistent there for the next couple of months, now a lot more people think that Biden has a much larger chance of winning the election than they did just a couple of months ago. And then this is their bar graph depicting basically the same thing as the electoral map, but just in bars, I guess. So the more solid the state is, the more closer it is to the left. So of course, the most solidly blue state, the voting block, I guess, is the District of Columbia. So it's all the way on the left over here. For Trump, that would of course be the 3rd district of Wyoming, Nebraska, followed by the state of Wyoming. And then the closest Biden states are going to be on the right, closest Trump states here. So you can see Texas, Ohio, Georgia, Iowa, the 2nd district of Maine, the 2nd district of Nebraska there, North Carolina, Arizona, Florida, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, and then Nevada, New Hampshire, and Minnesota. So basically, closer they are, the closer they are to the left, to the right, and then the better they are for either candidate, the closer they are to the left. And this just shows which states Biden can lose. Biden can lose the 2nd district of Nebraska, North Carolina, Arizona, and Florida, and lose the election. So this just, again, just shows that Biden has a lot of leeway when it comes to states that he can lose. And this graph here basically this chart just shows these states in which the electoral votes will be coming from. California, of course, will have the largest circle, 55 electoral votes, and they do have their percentages, percentages that they expect into these states on this map. This does differ from the original map, so this is something to look at. They expect Biden to win by 32% in California. Texas, they expect Trump to win by 3.6%. I think this is pretty likely just because of the mail-in voting and how you have to request a ballot with a reason in the state of Texas with an excuse. The state of Florida, plus 2.5 for Biden. North Carolina, plus 1.1 for the former vice president. Michigan, plus 7 for Biden. Wisconsin, 5.5. And Pennsylvania, also 5.5 in favor of Joe Biden. Minnesota, plus 7.6 here. Virginia, 10.5. And then Ohio, plus 2.7 for Trump. 2.7 in favor of the president in Georgia. And then Iowa, plus 1.9. So very close races here in Iowa, Georgia, Ohio, and Texas. And then New York, a large voting block for Biden right there, and most of the Northeast will all be blue according to the JHK forecast. And then lastly, we have the tipping point. Basically, this is just the percentage chances of each of these states being the tipping point states. Tipping point is, of course, here up here defined as the state that gets the eventual winner to 270 electoral votes. And I think that Florida, 21.1%, definitely could be Florida. And that would be the state that's called. That would give Joe Biden the victory. Or Pennsylvania, 19.3%. Michigan, 10%. Wisconsin, 9%. I honestly think that it's going to be Wisconsin, in my opinion. I think it's either going to be Wisconsin or Florida in that order. Followed by North Carolina, Arizona, Minnesota, Virginia, and Colorado. So basically all of the close states are all here. And as you can see, in basically all of the tipping point states, this is probably really shows how Biden is doing very well in this election. We look at the polling data, or not polling data, but the expected victories that JHK expects for the candidates in each of these tipping point states. As you can see, basically the top 9 states, I believe. These are all in favor of Biden right now. He leads in all 9 of the most possible tipping point states right now. So that's a very good sign for Joe Biden. And then as you can see, Trump leads in a few: Ohio, Georgia, Texas, Iowa, and then the 2nd District of Maine. But there's barely any chance of those states actually being the tipping points. But on the actual tipping points, Biden's doing very well. So that really does show a very good sign for the former vice president right now. And that is basically JHK forecast. We haven't taken a look at this in a while, but I think that they really do a good job at plotting out the information, just showing where each candidate is going to have their victories come from. So if you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like on this video as well as subscribing to my channel. Really appreciate all of your support. Leave your thoughts below in the comment section as well as any video suggestions you'd like to see from me in the future, and I will see you in the next video.